Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Registered Ranching Podcast, Throckmorton, Texas. A little different today because it's just me again, 2 weeks in a row. Willie's working on some bull fertility testing, so he said he would rather be with us than running the torpedo, as we call it, on bull fertility testing, but we miss you, Willie, and he's going to be on the next one. I promise. If you're here for Willie, he's going to be on the next one. But I do have a treat for you today. Because I've got two folks who are clear experts in what they do, whether they say they are or not. Some even might say they are the Steve Irwin of what they do. And it looked like she knew that was coming. But I do want to welcome to the podcast Lucy Morrissey and Dr. Tom Noffsinger. Thank y'all both for being a part of the podcast. And I hope you don't hate me for the starting off with the Steve.
We did talk about this
We did.
last night. I know better than to assume you are not going to use some information like that to have a laugh.
Yeah.
So I can forgive you. We may need to get a little context to that later.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get into that.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Tucker.
And as you can tell, Lucy, you're not from here.
You can tell.
I can tell.
Yeah.
From the voice, yeah.
It's because I don't pronounce my R's.
Yeah, but you are from Texas.
I am from Texas, Queensland, 4385, Lee Kernaghan country, people may call it.
Really? I haven't heard that part.
Well, have you heard of Lee Kernaghan?
No.
Well, that's okay. It doesn't matter. But he is a Australian country music singer, and he has a song about Texas, Queensland, 4385.
Really?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have to find that one.
We could play that.
I'm going to need to find that one. Dr. Tom Noffsinger, home in Nebraska.
I'm honored to be here, Tucker. Thank you for the invitation. It's a treat.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it is going to be a treat to be able to kind of get into y'all's minds today. Cattle handling experts would that be the right usage of the words?
Students,
continuous students.
that's right.
Just more of the expert than the rest of us.
You teach us, Tucker. That's how it works.
Yeah.
You teach us. I think, what did you tell me last time I was here? Oh, you said to me, it's not true what Shane says about you, Lucy. You're a hand.
You're a hand. Yeah, I don't care what Shane says. I like you. But being cattle handling experts, Lucy coming from Australia, and your dad, Shane, who is also another phenomenal cattle handling expert, gets to come here, once a year? Comes to the States once a year?
Yes, sir.
And so Dr. Tom, being the kind of the U.S. cattle handling expert, I get to travel all over the world and hold, what's the right word, schools for it?
Yes, Tucker, we teach every day in our veterinary practice, and mostly in cattle production. The amazing thing is the variation in cattle health or performance a lot of times is drastically explained by the people around the cattle. And a very, very special opportunity to be able to enhance that relationship.
Yeah, I think you just hit it right on the head at the first part of the podcast. Like the people who are handling the cattle are the ones who have a large effect on the productivity, growth, and health of the cattle.
Oh, it's just, I can think of very early times in my journey when I first started practice. I arrived in that rural Nebraska town, and there was a terrible brucellosis epidemic. So we had lots of herds that we had to bleed and test once a month until we cleared the disease. And it was truly amazing because part of those ranches, after the second or third trip through this facility, not only could the people not get them in the chute, we couldn't even get them in the holding pens.
Wow.
In contrast, there were other people whose cattle knew the routine. They filed in, walked in the same order every time, and they were similar genetics, similar resources, but different people. And it was very, very evident that made a difference.
Yeah, and then you see it in people's bottom dollar. I mean, it affects whether they're making a profit on those cattle or not.
That's interesting, Tucker. I never thought about that. Those ranches that had the problems getting the cattle to do work for them, they were really good customers for a veterinarian because there were a lot of problems on that ranch. These other people that had the cattle that would file through the facility, I almost had to just go there and have a meal with them because I wasn't needed most of the year. And that's, I'd forgot about that.
Yeah, you're kind of working against yourself here, being a veterinarian and be like, let me teach you how not to use me.
Yes.
Almost.
No, but there's plenty to do.
Yeah. Oh, I believe that.
Positive things.
Yeah. Yeah. And in a world where, cattle veterinarians are becoming slimmer and harder to find, especially.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Back to Lucy. Lucy, tell me about Morrissey and Friends.
So Morrissey and Friends Livestock Services is a business my father and I founded, I think, nearly 6 years ago. We come from very humble beginnings and remain there. We were very fortunate to meet Dr. Tom several years ago, and that introduction has genuinely changed the trajectory, certainly, of my life. We founded this business on the foundation that we are Morrissey, my father and I, and Friends are all the people in the industry who we work with, we learn from, we share with, and are all riding together, I guess, in this industry and striving for a greater understanding of these animals and their behaviours. So our methods are founded very simply on stockmanship, understanding an animal's behaviour, their innate desires and instincts and their senses, and applying that really practically to the handling environment so we can see benefits in their well-being, their welfare, their performance, as you guys have just been talking about. We know that a happy animal is a productive animal.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, a little bit of a pivot in business service offerings has been into that safety space as well. We know when we handle these animals with an understanding of their needs, we can operate in a safer manner for the handler and for that critter as well. So it's a very holistic picture, and if you're a quality-based business, then this sort of a service is just absolutely integral, and it's just such a pleasure to work with people and cattle and horses all over this country, and I'm incredibly humbled that people would sit down and listen to some of those lived experiences with me and do what we can to apply to the working environment and do better for the animals that we care for.
So what do you think brings people to want to use both of your services? I mean, no matter what country it is, there's it feels like there's a pride in the industry here that, you learn from the cowboy next to you or from the wise cowboy that's been there a long time. But what do you think it is that the final straw that makes people know they need to invest in learning that cattle handling?
Oh, I think, Tucker, you're completely right there in saying there's absolutely a pride in working in the livestock industry. It's one of my favourite elements of spending time in America is your really rich traditional cowboy culture. You guys have just got so much pride in what you do. You live and breathe it. You wear it. Yeah. And I go home and I'm filled with energy and motivation and pride for the same thing. Our culture isn't as rich in that respect at home, but the stockman certainly is filled with pride for being a custodian of those animals and working hard day and night to provide for them. And I think any true stockman, cattleman, cowboy, ringer, whatever reference you use, wants to know that they're striving to be better every day and doing everything they can to look after that land and that animal, and it can be a little competitive, which I think is cool as well. You know, if you look good working in those cattle yards, that's something to be real proud of. And there is nothing I love more than to sit and watch people perform in the yards and step around those animals and work in unison and see that fluidity of that man and beast working together. And once you see what good looks like, you can never unsee it. And so I guess full circle to answer your question, seeing what good looks like and being able to re-deliver that to people or help people understand what that looks like in themselves, that really drives people to be better every day. And yeah, it's a bit of an addiction.
Mm-hmm. They just got to get a taste of that, huh?
A little taste of that, and it's to watch some of these people that we get to work with, whether they've been brought up in an agricultural industry or whether they've come from the city and decided this is what I want to do. It doesn't matter in our industry, everybody's welcome there. But to be able to see them feel innately that moment where they got their timing right and their position right and their posture right, and they start really communicating non-verbally with that animal, it's incredible to watch.
What are you grinning about?
I love it, man. I love it.
Dr.
Tom, you work a lot with, would you say you work mostly with feed yard crews?
Yes, but my love is still at the ranch.
Yeah.
The exciting thing is once you have the opportunity to impact this animal, even at conception or prior to conception, and continue that level of care until harvest, it's the proceeds of that effort are just amazing. And what I think is really enjoyable is that the people that I am honored to work with take for granted how much they care. And if you can show them the difference it makes and enhance that and have them understand that at a deeper level, and then understand how powerful they are, and that I never want them to take themselves for granted. It's really special.
I think you said something interesting there. You said the impact you can make even prior to conception. Now, what do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I would have never believed, Tucker, that people's intervention with animals could change things like conception rates, could change things like nursing frequency, could change things about how far the baby is from the mother the first 6 months of his life. I had no idea that in veterinary school, nobody told us that you could get a calf to nurse 20 times a day instead of twice a day.
Wow.
And that changes everything.
By cattle handling techniques?
By starting with the replacement heifer.
Wow.
Better yet, starting when the replacement heifer is born.
Yeah.
And it's such an exuberant thing once you see it expressed.
That's neat. And oh gosh, how long, Dr. Tom, have you been working with Donald or coming here? Because I mean, it seems like
a long time.
Yeah.
Tucker, what is powerful is that I am by no means even close to an expert, but the people like Bud Williams that I found, the people like Shane and Lucy that I found, the people like Chris and Miranda in Australia that came to show me how to wean calves in such a way that they gain the same weight the day you wean them as they did the day before. I don't know, I can't explain that. I must have been really in need of counseling because they've come from all over the world to help me.
If I can contribute to that, I think, Doc, we found you. we found you.
What? So, you've been working on this a long time, and you longer, even though Morrissey and Friends started 6 years ago. You and Shane have been working on cattle handling techniques for longer than that. Have your views of the cattle handling techniques changed over time?
The only thing that changes is us. The animals are always innately the same. It's our ability to perceive what they're trying to tell us And I think a lot of that, the makeup of that is our mindset at the time. Doc and I have been talking a lot recently about the simplicity and understanding or recognising the cues that these animals can give us, the micro behaviours, and how if we have the capacity to observe and learn what that micro behaviour might mean and time our behaviours to that animal, we have an incredible opportunity to educate that animal from the slightest pressure, recognise the slightest try, and interact with them in a really connected way. I think the only thing that's changed, certainly for me, but I think for my father Shane as well, is that we've realised it's not as complicated as what we've made it in the past. It's really quite simple if we get out of our ego, if we get out of our natural predatory instincts and work on an equal playing field with these animals where we're just interacting and responding to them like we would for you or I, Tucker. When you agree with something I say, there's a small head nod. When you disagree with something I say, there's a slight movement of the skin on either side of your nose.
I'm being read right now.
Yeah, the movements in our hands and our posture and our position as human beings, that all means something.
Interesting.
And it all means something for those animals as well. It's just much more simplistic.
Oh,
Lucy, what I think the number one instinct we learned that's always happening with cattle is that they crave to see us, even if you look like me. And and the thing that you're teaching me is that why do they want to see us? And that innate relationship is there unless we ruin it.
Yes, sir, always.
I think that's a piece of the puzzle that I need to know more about.
They're incredibly forgiving animals.
And this request for guidance.
Yes, sir.
They just nobody knows enough neurophysiology to know if they crave to please us, but they crave support and they crave guidance.
They crave contentment as well.
Pretty simple things, huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Working cattle with you, watching, learning. I definitely learn more by watching you and you kind of talking us through it than I have over any TV screen or anything. But yeah, you saying that reminds me of every time you walk into that pen, you're always saying, all right, like which one is asking me where to go, and finding that first one rather than just going all the way back behind them. And I've never. You said asking for guidance, and you're like, which one's asking, and the others will follow.
Absolutely.
I found that to be interesting. It was cool to have you at the sale what was it, October? March?
Oh,
I don't remember.
I met Tucker. I really enjoyed that, and the people I got to meet.
Yeah.
The most beautiful about that experience was there were many people in that audience better at these things than I am, and they were willing to come up and share. This is how I interpret that, and that's how we go forward together, is sharing.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool. I thought you earned a lot of respect from the folks that came, a long ways to come and listen. To catch you up, listeners, we have some educational experiences before our sales, and part of that was having Dr. Tom come and do a cattle handling techniques and talking us through it and walking us through it. And the stands were full. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Like people want to know, or at least the people who are coming to the sale anyway. Like they want to know.
That says a lot about your company. Taylor, that was the other thing Diane and I talked about on the way home. We've been to venues similar to that where everybody ignored us and were overdoing something else, and it was opposite at your sale. That was powerful.
And I thought you had gained a lot of respect from, I think, our customer base, which tends to lean on that cowboy tradition of whenever I handed you my horse, Snapchat, I handed you him, and you like quit talking cattle and you just talked horses for like 10, 15 minutes. And you started talking about how he was acting and how his energy was affecting the cattle, whether it was high or low, or his pace of walking, which I thought I'd never heard that before of, his walking speed and even our walking speed and how that changes what cattle feel. I thought that was really cool, and I thought our audience really liked that part too. Of like, not only it seems like sometimes when we're so pulled into that cowboy tradition of which one am I going to rope next, to okay, this guy, he knows cattle, he knows how to act. Oh, and it's like, oh, okay, he can ride a horse too, and he knows how a horse acts, and I feel like that opens up people's what's the right word? People's like opportunity to learn.
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree. I think we need to be good at what we want people to be good at before we can start sharing information with them. I think that's incredibly important, and where we fail sometimes, we get stuck in the delivery of information, and this is the theory, and this is why we do it, and this is who I am. Getting out of that and getting back to the basics, working cattle and horses with people, sharing that information, being a sponge, learning from observation, be good at what you want your people or your team or your audience to be good at. And that builds trust, that builds respect, it builds unity, and then that seed starts to spread and grow. Telling people, telling cattle, telling horses what to do, it will work, but it's not nearly as effective, and it doesn't last long term.
Rather than asking?
Rather than showing, asking,
okay.
Building trust and respect. Absolutely, yeah.
People and animals alike.
People and animals alike.
Wow.
I never dreamed that cadence and rhythm and biology was so critically important, Lucy. Watching you and Shane, the horse's foot speed is what the cattle want to imitate, and it transfers clear from working with quiet mothers and babies clear to making a team roping run. That's what people will learn. I've watched you and Shane have a horse. The critical thing that horse has to be able to do is to have rhythm in his step and be taught that he can take steps that are 6 inches long and he can take a step that's 36 inches long. And that's how you get where you need to be. But the cadence is the same.
Yes.
And then you think about some of these team ropers making some of these 3.8 to 4.5 second runs. When that happens, if you stop the camera, everything is in harmony. The horse is in the left lead, the rider has his left foot forward, the steer's in the left lead, and all those feet are landing simultaneously.
Wow.
And if that isn't happening, it looks like one of my runs.
Doc can still rope a dummy quicker than I can coil one. Building the confidence in that animal to make the decision on those movements themselves as well, Doc. When the horse that you are sitting on is in tune with you and can feel a muscle move that reflects that next request, they will understand the consistency of your cues and start applying what you're asking for them in advance. They'll anticipate. So by that, what I mean is having a horse, for example, that has the confidence to take that small step or that long step or the change of weight on their feet or the flick of an ear when they're interacting with those cattle or that individual animal, they'll start doing it for you. It's quite incredible. My father has, not anymore, had an old mare who he bred, and she was a beautiful old mare, quarter horse, stock horse cross, and Shane worked her in feedlots for I don't know, 10, 15 years after all the station work that he did. And they just became one. And that mare, she would know exactly where to put that foot, where to sway that weight, when to flick that ear. And she'd give that animal every opportunity to walk out that gate when requested. And by golly, she'd count. I'm sure she could count. Because the minute it was taking too much time, those ears would go back on her neck and she'd just lash out at this animal. But then she'd forgive it and she'd just back right back up again and that animal would go out. It's the perfect example of the type of pressure and release we try to use with these cattle when we work them, but an animal reading it themselves because we've given it the the confidence to make the decision on when to apply. It's quite incredible. Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That little roan horse that you borrow from me.
Yes.
You've got him now. If I have some high-risk cattle and they're in a corner and there's some health problems in those animals, he will almost sneak. And what I can understand, Lucy, is their feel for our vision, because there's one there that I'm most worried about, and he is too.
Yes.
How he knows exactly what my vision is doing, and he will just puddle around in there and not,
He won't offend anybody.
nobody, no
Yeah.
offense.
And I like it as well when he starts to get a little frustrated with an animal that might not be unwell but has to come out, and you might start jumping on the spot a little bit. Like, I'm getting impatient here. We've got a job to do.
Yeah.
He's getting pretty important, that little roan horse of yours.
Yeah, I'm going to go to one of my favorite segments of the podcast. It's called the Ag Gear Hot Seat. And Ag Gear is the shirts that I like to wear. They keep me cool. But now, since neither of you are wearing Ag Gear, this seat's going to get a little hot because these questions are going to be coming in fast, all right? So what I did was I asked the audience on social media for some questions for each of you. Also, if you haven't worn Ag Gear yet, go to aggearstore.com, use discount code Tucker Brown, save 15% off. I'm wearing the Stockyard right now, Stockyard shirt.
I like that one.
If y'all were wearing it, the seat wouldn't be so hot.
It's snap button.
Mm-hmm.
Cool pattern. Pearl snap button.
Pearl snap.
That's
Come on.
That's cowboy.
Come on. But I've got a few questions for you. A lot of them went towards Lucy. I think the Australian just really intrigues a lot of my followers.
Don't be too intrigued.
What is the most popular breed of cattle in Australia?
Oh, I'm popular in terms of marketability, demand. I think that the Angus breed, that Angus, that is internationally well regarded. That breed of cattle, they've done such an incredible job of marketing that breed. I think in terms of the product, then absolutely Black Angus.
Yeah.
We also breed a lot of Brahman and Brahman cross because of that Indicus component. And the northern parts and far western parts of Australia demand a heat tolerant, resilient animal, and that a Brahman cross, Brahman composite, it's incredibly. In terms of population, potentially Brahman and Brahman cross would be a high population, but in terms of demand from consumer for the end of cycle product, Angus. Personally, I'd have Brahmans.
You would?
Oh yeah.
I always say, and people always, I mean, it's kind of offensive, but not in a playful way. I always say, like, yeah, if I wanted to lose money, I'd have Brahman all the time.
See, I look at it from the perspective of working with them. And they're so fun to work with.
Oh, see, I would think that was so opposite.
They're so lively.
Got a lot of movement.
I think their survival instincts are much more tweaked, and that comes back from history and where they're originally from and the predators that were there. I think
all 400 predators of
this
Australia that try to kill you.
This is dangerous of me to say, but I think they might be a little more intelligent.
I think so too.
Yeah, and you really can do much less with them to
get
the
more.
desired result. Those animals, you just look in a direction and they'll go if you let them.
Yeah.
I'm biased. I love
Yeah.
a Brahman, and to be honest, I mean, unless it was an old spay cow, once it's on my plate, I don't think I can tell what it looked like beforehand. Yeah.
No, as long as it's choice or prime, I don't care what it was.
And cooked medium rare.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, I think a lot more in the U.S. have added that Brahmin influence into their cow herd just because we've gotten our cows so big, and fertility has been hurt pretty badly because we're just making these massive Angus cattle, 1,600-pound cows that, I mean, to fit the environment, don't need to be that big.
Sure.
So bringing in a little more Brahmin influence, getting some hybrid vigor, I think that's starting to add a lot more into, especially the southeast, obviously, of the United States. Not as much here. All right, Dr. Tom, any tips for someone moving from using a motor vehicle to work with cattle, moving to horses to work with cattle?
So moving, learn the power of stepping back. And so the motor vehicles that I have are go forward very well, but they stop abruptly, and it takes a few seconds to put them in reverse to step back. And so the biggest opportunity, if you go from a four-wheeler to a pickup and get on your horse, that's the first thing you teach him, is that you walk straight and you step back quietly with your head down and relax. And so I think those are opportunities. The angles that horse uses are very, very important, and you start teaching him to know when it's powerful to be parallel to the animal, when it's positive to be a slight angle out or toward. And so the position and the use of angles, but the release of pressure and that whole harmony is the big opportunity when you switch to a horse.
That was good. I liked that. I didn't know where that was going to go, but I liked that.
That was
You did
that was
too. You
beautiful.
liked that. I was telling by your micro movements of.
There's nothing micro about me. I am, except for my gene size. My behaviours are not micro. I try hard to moderate, but it goes against my natural instincts.
All right, back to you, Lucy. Why don't they rope in Australia?
Oh,
There's no saddle horn.
I get asked this a lot. Yeah, we saddles are really expensive, and to put that horn on costs an extra bit of money. So it's just, I mean, that's not in the budget.
Not in the budget. Whenever I asked Shane that, he was like, "We don't have to. We're better cowboys."
Oh,
like,
controversial,
okay,
Shane. Controversial. No, look, again, I think it comes back to that tradition.
Yeah.
You guys you in terms of society, you're older than us in that cowboy culture, and that's the way it was founded for you, and it's just been developed differently in Australia. There's arguments either side. I've been to. I think I'm going to transition your question a little bit because I want to talk about this.
Okay.
I think with your traditions in particular, I've been to some brandings here. In Nebraska.
Yeah.
Where they're roping the calves, and we don't do it like that at home. I don't think it'd be as efficient time-wise. I know it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
However, I'd introduce a version of it where I could, because the community around those brandings, those ranch brandings, is just one of the most beautiful, rewarding moments that I get to partake in.
Yeah.
I've been coming here to visit Doc and you guys since 2016. I've only been to 2 or 3 brandings and met a lot of these community members around Benkelman, Nebraska a few times. But I'm welcomed with open arms, and they are so united, and they come together for a common cause, and they visit. and they drink a beer and they eat good food and they get dirty and they work calves and they tell stories. And it is, if I could bring some more of that home to Australia, of opening your farm gates and sharing what you're doing, even if you're on the other side of that boundary, that I would take home with me and try and implement. It is just an incredible experience. Yeah.
As far as cattle handling, how does branding fall into that, or does it? Or what are the differences? We know there's some.
Be careful here. I might not be allowed back in the country.
No, we know there's some. We know there's some. I mean, like, we don't drag our registered calves.
Sure. Sure.
Like, we know the cattle handling is different.
Sure.
Based on that, and then it's also different based on who's roping. What horse is in that herd.
Absolutely.
So it can be so variable. But like, maybe what are some of the payoffs or some of the differences between running through the chute or branding?
Again, it's all, you're absolutely correct. It's founded on the quality of the stockman and the standards in that set of yards. We can mess it up doing both, and we can excel doing both. I believe that. In terms of the benefits of not roping, I think you can maintain a more consistent standard of handling them through the chute. The time control, you've got one animal to work on at a time and the full focus is there. You also have an opportunity to control those herd movements and have the mothers there. You've got an opportunity for pre-weaning practices of segregating those babies for a short time to introduce them to what's coming down the track. I think it's less stressful on the mother cow to be close by. They're not travelling, running away, stressed, and then coming back again. I think it's about a consistency of quality of that handling that really supports whether or not that animal spends a long time in fight or flight, and how long that period of time is. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Doc? Do you want to contribute?
Lucy, I probably our thought process is, if we're going to own the animal all his life, that every intervention is an opportunity to train, and you can do both, and both can be done very well. I'll never. Chris and Miranda came, and I asked them we had 130 pairs left to work, and I asked Chris to show me exactly what they do at their station at Mount Lindsay. And we did this. We gathered those pairs on Wednesday to prepare them for Saturday's branding. We sorted them very quietly, and we put the babies in this pen, and there was a walk-through gate in the corner of that pen, and we took two 10-foot-long panels and made a small alleyway and left the babies in there overnight and put the cows out in front of the alleyway. And when we went the next morning, they'd learned to walk down that alley to get back with their mama. And that's what we repeated and imitated the day we branded. Now, you could walk them out that alley and rope them if you wanted to, or you could walk them out that alley and put them in a cradle. The point is, when we came back to do that same thing at pre-weaning vaccination, it was just automatic. Those animals already were prepared. They just came to the chute. And so those are opportunities, whichever method you're using, you can incorporate the idea that we want to make the next step easier and more productive.
That's a great answer, Doc.
It's like you've done this a time or two.
Yeah, every opportunity is one to set them up for success for the future and build positive relationships. The yards don't have to be a bad place to be.
That's right.
The last question of the Ag Gear Hot Seat. How many kangaroos have you roped?
I've roped 0. I've run over many. Accidentally, of course.
Of course, accidentally.
Accidentally.
Right. Yeah.
Those critters, they bounce all over the place. They can be in town, in your driveway, on the highway, just bouncing.
Is there a, do y'all call them, do you always call them kangaroos or roos, or is there a different term used for these animals? Critters, as you'd say. Critters, excuse me.
It's pronounced critter,
Critter.
kind of like your name is Tucker.
Taka. A-H.
No, some kangaroos we call Sir Bounce-a-lot, but otherwise.
Sir Bounce-a-lot.
I should have thought of this. I wanted to have some good names of Australian things for you to share. I do have one.
You do have one?
I do have one.
What is it?
That's going to be a question for you later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have heard one more question of the hot seat. True or false? I've heard that I am a ringa-ranga.
A ringer-ranger. Well, you're a ranger because you're a redhead.
Yeah.
But I think you're a little further advanced than a ringer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know the
Take
exact.
that as a compliment.
I will.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Don't let it go to your head.
I won't.
You're a big
But I'm going to make fun of the person who called me that. It was Anna.
Tell me what you call wheel cakes here in America.
Oh, Will. So one of Willie and I's favorite things is to come up with, like the Australian terms for words we use are like at their simplest form. And so what we would call donuts, we were coming up with these Australian names. And so we were like, oh, Aussies have to call these wheel cakes. Just got to call them wheel cakes. And there was something else that Anna McTaggart, she was an intern, and she also did a podcast. You can go back to listen to it. One of the first 10, I think. But she said something like there was a fuzzy caterpillar, and we were like, oh, there's a caterpillar. And she was like, no, that's a what'd she call it, a fuzzy grub or something. And
itchy grub.
Itchy grub, that's what it was. Itchy grub. And it was just like
an itchy grub.
Everything was just at its most simple form of description. And so we were always having fun with that.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, welcome out of the Ag Gear hot seat. It wasn't too hot.
How do you feel, Doc? You sweating? You excelled. Dr.
He
Tom
did.
excels in the hot seat.
He does. He likes it. He likes the pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I like to go. I like this question. So you work with a lot of different types of people, Dr. Tom. And I'm going to put them into two groups. I know there's more, but I'm going to put them into two groups. Feedlot cattle handlers, cowboy cattle handlers. And I know there's some mix and mingle in between the two. Which group is easier to teach? Or maybe more willing to learn? Which group is more willing to learn?
There's no difference, Tucker.
No difference.
The variation applies to both groups of people.
Okay.
So if I had my want, I would spend more time with ranch cowboys because there's more space. So no fences.
Yeah.
All of that can happen with no fences, and you have the freedom to be where you want to be and need to be. And so the biggest thing in feedlot medicine is we're really confined to 14-foot wide alleys or a pen, and we've got too much stuff in the way, and so you have to learn to work around it. When it comes to the people, those people that work on a ranch have less stress. There's not as many bells and whistles, and we have to be efficient in what we do, but the better we are at what we're doing, the less time it takes.
Yeah.
So you can reap the rewards of skill and knowledge. A lot of the answer to your question absolutely depends on where they had previous experience, and that Shane and Lucy have taught me that 70% of the reason people do it the way they do it is because that's what they've seen. And so what they've seen is part of the introductory thing. So I try to interview them and get to know them to the point where I have some idea of what they've seen and what they think is normal.
Interesting. I bet even teaching cattle handling, feels like you have to learn more about your audience before you're to know how to teach it.
Absolutely. I absolutely don't.
So learning takes preparation.
Yes, sir.
Learning is if the old saying that when the student's ready, the teacher shows up. I was with Bud Williams for 5 years. He lived in our town. He told me the same thing 5 years in a row, and toward the end, I understood what he meant by the same statement. It takes time. It takes time.
Dr. Tom said to me once, this was many years ago, when I was in my phase of having to label and write it down and create the booklet and the process and the procedure. I asked Dr. Tom how to define stockmanship. And he said, it takes time to define the how and why of stockmanship. That was 8 or 9 or 10 years ago. And in recent years, it's become much more evident, or I understand what you mean. And shortly following that, I was able to define stockmanship for myself, what that meant to me.
That's a good point, Lucy. And what you and Shane have helped me with is an inspiration to know more about the central nervous system of both creatures, ourselves and of the animals, and then to understand learning. The Dunning-Kruger curve that you brought, there is, in past times I've been pretty critical of some of the way truck drivers load cattle. And that was my fault. How would you expect anything different? They understood a lot about, there's no way that I could check the oil in a truck. There's no way I could even drive the thing. They were experts at that.
Multi-skilled.
And no one had ever taught them what can be expected, what is possible back there at the loading chute. And
This is a beautiful part about being in the seat to train or share information with people, if you will, Doc, because sometimes the less they know, the better. So the statistic that Doc mentioned a moment ago, 70% of what we do is founded on the first way we saw it done. 20% is then due to prior education or further education. 20% is coaching. So you're intentionally seeking out that. And then the last percentage is formal education. So 70% of what we do is founded on the first way we saw it done. And then 5 to 7% of the decisions we make every day are founded in our conscious. Everything else comes from our unconscious, the vault, which you could say is those habit-bound behaviours, which equate to 70% of the first way we saw it done.
Dang.
So if we want
scientific over here.
if we want to change a habit,
Yeah.
which I believe is on average between 22 and 66 days on average to change a habit, if we're consciously attempting that habit change every day, we've got to take into consideration that we have to be conscious, which 95% of the time
We're not.
we're not. and we've got to change a habit that was the first way we saw it.
Yeah.
So if for you, Tucker, the way you hold your knife and fork, the way Kelly Brown showed you, or
Yeah.
the way Kelly Brown did it, the way we load a cattle truck, for some of those drivers, have they ever seen it done before they've spent a lot of time learning how to drive a truck, back it onto one of those ramps, heaven forbid, and then loading those animals the first way they saw it done.
Wow. So this will flow good into the one of my favorite segments, the Bedrock Tough Question. So Bedrock truck beds are the truck beds that we use on the ranch. We love them. Been working with them for 2 years now, and they just came out with a new hay spike bed. Check it out at bedrocktruckbeds.com. You got to try it because we do. So the tough question.
Is that on your pickup that you're driving now?
Yeah.
It's pretty sexy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I
Did
love
you
it.
see? Yeah.
I love it. It kind of makes me more than a Ranga, you know. How would you define Ranga, by the way?
A ranger or a redhead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I meant the other one, Ranga. A ringer.
A ringer
is what I meant.
A ringer is they're typically from stations or ranches, big stations or ranches. I'll use the terminology really loosely because people have different ideas. I got hassled big time badly in Australia because I referred to myself as a cowgirl, and apparently I'm not allowed to because I'm not American. And they said she's a gillaroo. A gillaroo is like a first year cowgirl.
Like a green hand.
Yeah, like a green ant. I was moderately offended.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay.
What'd you call it? A gillaroo?
A gillaroo. So that's a female, and then a jackaroo is the young male.
Oh.
Who's a green ant,
Yeah.
as in your expression. A ringer is somebody who's more experienced. They can really get a job done.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then you probably transition into a stockman.
So his main function was to muster, right?
A ringer is on a station and they do cattle work only, mustering, branding, weaning.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Whereas
Interesting.
a
Okay.
jackaroo might be doing a little more fencing.
Yeah.
Tip runs, rubbish runs, farm maintenance.
Just little,
Yeah.
the gopher.
Yeah.
Go for this, go for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got
The
to
Aussie
prove
words,
yourself.
man. Jackaroo, gillaroo.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Sorry,
where
we got
was I?
distracted.
Oh,
Yeah.
we're the bedrock tough question. Okay. What is I'm going to start it with this, and you can kind of take it wherever you want to go. But what is the toughest thing to teach someone about cattle handling?
Mindset.
Teaching the mindset, the conscious mindset.
Having the right mindset. Yeah. Walking into the yards with a negative mindset, you'll get negative results. Walking into the yards with nervousness, with a fast heart rate, you'll get negative. Those animals will respond in kind. And timing, I think. Feel, I don't know.
Yeah, feel is hard to...
Feel's hard.
Okay. How do you know? Well, you'll feel it.
Yeah.
So do it for 10 years, and then you'll feel it.
That's right.
What do you think, Dr. Tom?
I think being willing to adjust and know that your skill set is a journey, and that you should be always open at knowing what is possible. I think having an intense sense of curiosity and always having a vision of this looked pretty good,
Yes.
but what is possible?
Yeah.
And that I think getting them to understand where they are on that learning curve and being humble about that.
And don't be offended by the cattle's behaviour.
That's right.
It's not personal. You gotta, if it doesn't work, you forgive and you try plan B or C or D or whatever. Swallow your pride and try again. But don't get angry at those animals. The only reason they're not doing what you asked is because you haven't asked in a way they understand.
The scary part, Lucy, is they do exactly what you tell them.
They do. Yeah.
They're so consistent. Whatever they do is because of the message you gave them. We can debate about their interpretation.
Yes.
But that's pretty humbling.
Yes. Yes.
That's interesting. What would you say, Dr. Tom? What's the toughest part about teaching? What's the hardest thing to learn?
I think the toughest thing is to have them self-evaluate their level of confidence. Okay, and ask them, what are you comfortable doing? What are you confident in doing? And then ask and show me how you do that.
Yeah.
And then start using words that Lucy's have taught me, like, would it be better if they did that? Could it be better? Should it be better? And getting that person in an attitude of learning and building his curiosity is probably the most difficult step I have.
I'd agree, Doc. That was well worded.
A lot of the mindset
Absolutely.
is what it sounds like.
And
changing that
using
mindset.
language, using the right language when setting up those interactions, whether you know what I'm doing or not. I'm using the type of language that gives you the opportunity to think that, or to know that you're the most important person in this interaction. So you start to consider and feel confident in what you're saying, because I've built that confidence in you by asking you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always found it, it seems like now, whenever I work cattle, learning from Shane, I think it was like 2018 or something. It was the first time he came out. I don't know when that was, 17, 18,
15.
15?
Yes, sir.
Was that it? Dang.
First time he came to visit Doc, I think. So a visit that.
Maybe it was the first time he came to us.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
he didn't come. I don't know. Anyway, 15 to 17 in there. We were moving bulls, and he started talking to me about watching their eye, and I was like, why would I need to watch their eye? And I felt like I was a pretty good cattle handler at the time. You know, Dad always talks about low stress and the chi and having low energy and matching the chi or changing it how you need to get them to move and fight or flight. But since Shane had talked about the eye and watching the eye, that has changed the way that I moved or like watched cattle or how I figure out what they're asking me or where I need to be. Because I found that so interesting, especially in a cattle drive, if I'm on the side and one of the front cows veers off to the right and I'm on that side. I mean, my mindset was to go up to her, to maybe go at her shoulder or something and get her to turn around. And I remember he was like, no. Next time it happens, just let me do it. And instead of going all the way up to the front, which stopped everything else behind it, he just went straight sideways, got in her eye, and the moment that she moved her head to the left and was looking at him out of her left eye, he let go. He backed up, and that cow went back in and kept going. None of the others stopped, and I was like, what?
It's magic.
What?
Yeah. So it's
He's 50 yards from her.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's
in our
work-
cows, you got to be close
yeah.
normally.
He's working off the globe of the eye, and the globe of the eye has got 3 working points.
Yeah, and Tucker, you said I watched the eye, and I think what you really mean is you're available to the eye,
Okay.
and that's we use both.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that has opened up. There's some literature being written that the shoulder is the point of balance. That's a relative term if you want cattle to go down a circular alleyway. That's true. If you want cattle to go straight, then you have the shoulder has nothing to do with anything. It's your position relative to the globe of the eye. And when you have a choice and you meet cattle the first time and you give them freedom, you'll notice they'll always stand with their left eye against you the first time. And same way with horses. And it's a message knowing more about the animal. Why do they do that? Because the optic nerves cross, and whatever goes into that left eye, immediately the picture of that goes over to the right or the prefrontal cortex, the peaceful side of the brain.
Wow.
So if you're always a little handier if you can start with the left eye. You have to teach them to be worked from the right eye too, but you'll notice that if you're over there, he's a little more reactive. There's a little more anxiety. So if you're working with Lucy's Brahma cows, you need to start on the left.
Yeah.
If you're in a pen in a dairy with Holsteins, you may want to go over on the right side and wake them up.
Get a little more movement out of it.
And the more we know about that visual, I had no idea that their binocular vision is absent until you're right out in front of them. Only when you're on the left side, only 7% of what they are seeing on the left eye is transferred over to the right side of the brain. So they're not even aware you're there until you go over and introduce yourself. And so the more we learn about neurophysiology and vision, depth perception,
Yeah.
a beautiful peripheral vision, but they can't tell how far away you are. without moving their head or you moving. That's why we never stand still in a group of cattle.
So a cool example, Tucker, and I've actually got a video of you doing it, of utilizing both eyes to maintain a driving motion in an alleyway on cattle when we've got to work behind them, is going from one side of the alley to the other and catching each eye every time you go over there. I've got a video of you doing that. You were actually on the news in Australia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Well, I had an interview
My chest is puffing
on
out
the
a little
news, and they asked if I had any cool footage that they could put behind it while they were talking. what they were doing.
Nice.
So I grabbed some out of
Dang.
you in a bud box, and I've got to check it actually. I'm not sure. This is funny.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure whether they say. I'm not sure whether they say teaching cattle how to use the bud box, or Lucy in Texas, America, teaching cattle how to use the bud box, or teaching cowboys
Jackaroo.
teaching cowboys how to use the bud box. If Tucker hears that, I'm on the news in Australia telling people
I
I'm
taught this
teaching him
guy.
how to use the bud box.
I taught this guy how to use it.
Ooh, not very humble.
That's
but yeah,
great.
You were on the news. There
That's
you go.
cool.
That video you have of doing that, Lucy, the other thing that I forget a lot of times is I ask Bud where a lot of his knowledge came from. Which book did you read, Bud? And he never did tell me, but what became very obvious, that's what a border collie would do.
Yes, sir.
And most of what he really based his position and movements were on what a Kelpie or a border collie has deep in their instincts. And it's fun to watch those.
Yeah, it seems like no matter what dog, good or bad, but the first thing they do is weave. If they're with me, every dog I've had, which I typically don't work with dogs, but the handful that I've had with me at a certain times, the first thing they do is side to side if they're behind those animals, whether they have any training or not.
No, it's, they know. And that's what I use illustration if someone is going to use four-wheelers and teach them to ride in figure eights rather than straight behind cattle, and that's so you don't have to stop and put it in reverse. You can come and go.
Yeah, he's talking all this science, and he says he's not an expert.
Yeah.
Come on. No, I remember the first time I heard it of like, you start thinking about the cow and where they can see, and the one place they can't see is directly behind them. But when we want to push cattle, we go directly behind them. You're like, wow, okay, that doesn't make
That's where
sense.
you stand and apply pressure if you want them to turn around.
Yeah, not if you want them to go forward.
Yeah.
Dr. Tom, have you been to Australia many times?
Hot seat. Hot seat.
Yeah, I don't know how many visits. I started, one of our veterinary partners does most of the feed yard work in Eastern Australia, so I went with Dr. Kev Sullivan mostly to feedlots initially, and that was a lot of, it was amazing transformation. It changes your dimension. We get in a rut in America, and his biggest lesson to me there was case definition. They have a lot of animals that come in to their feed yards, but they're older cattle that have been out in huge places, and they are so worried about where they are, they will themselves to die because they won't eat and drink.
Wow.
And we look at that as an undifferentiated depression. So what would a veterinarian here do? Give it an antibiotic, and that's the last thing it needed. And the things I learned about viral disease and all of the things, it's been amazing. And we've gone from focusing on feedlots to meeting people like Chris and Miranda, Shane and Lucy, and it is it's a priceless place, Tucker. It's it's a plain spot with beautiful people.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of answered my question of is there something in Australia in the beef and cattle industry that you wish was over here? Because Lucy talked a little bit about the community, the branding, the heritage that we have. You know, if there's something you could take, that would be it. But is there something in the Australian culture, industry practices that you would take over here?
We the preconditioning program in America has a long history, preparing cattle with vaccine to go to a feedlot. They have a thing called yard weaning, and they as that baby goes through its life, they know it's going to have to be weaned. They know it has to be transported, so they will have a practice weaning. They'll bring those babies in, separate the mothers, and they will do acclimation and exercise stockmanship for 1 or 2 days and teach those animals to go through a working facility with the chute open. And those, and they certify that. There's a procedure. Lucy's got video. They don't have any feed. What do they feed those calves? They actually let those babies go out in a nice green meadow, graze their fill, come back in the pen and spend the night there. So they've got training in the facility. They've been trained to drive, trained to manage the gate, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
And so the preconditioning program in Australia that's done correctly not only involves a couple vaccines. The important part of that is the stockmanship, the cattle training. It's just earth-shaking what it accomplishes.
Wow. That's interesting. I guess I'll have to go over there.
I'd like to go with you.
You are cordially invited.
Yes.
And I've been hassling Dr. Tom for a couple of years now to get back over. The time that Doc came over when we knew each other was 2019 in January. It was right before COVID. In fact, he nearly got stuck in the country.
We were on the last plane
That would have
left
been
when
terrible.
they shut the airport down.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because Diane was there as well, and Heath, and their son Heath. And we did some really fun things. We got to sit on my porch and visit instead of sitting on Dr. Tom's, which he's very generously always is open for me to do so. We got to mess with my dogs. We rode our horses. We went to a friend's farm where we did what we did yesterday with Donald and got down on our hands and knees and looked at the grass and the roots and the growth and the fertilizer in that soil and just
cover crop
Yeah.
industry there, it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Just mind-blowing.
And we got to take Doc to a couple of our clients' yards and properties as well. It's such a privilege for people at home to have someone like Doc come and visit, as it would be for you. And I think we need to work out how we really promote getting the knowledge and the energy and the positivity and what you guys do for the industry here, and let some people over home enjoy that a little more as well.
One thing I learned about Australia last year.
Anna, was she telling you the truth?
Well, I guess we'll find out, because Anna was telling me that there is a week in Australia where the cattlemen gather, and they call it Beef Week.
Yes, sir. I think we need to get you a speaking slot there.
So there is a date on the calendar, and a handshake of I am going with another person to there. So
2027?
2027.
Yeah, Beef Week in Rockhampton. Dr. Tom spoke. He was a keynote speaker at Beef Week in Rockhampton a number of years ago. Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a fun time.
And so we have, something similar. We have our National Cattlemen's Beef Association convention once a year, where there's, a handful of thousand folks that show up. But from what I heard from Anna, it's more like, maybe 100,000 people that might gather in Rockhampton that week.
I think collectively it's a huge number, because it goes for a week, and there's conferences and speaking sessions and seminars all day, and then there's the trade show and the fair, and then there's the animals and the sales, and then there's the evenings that
The best
also quite fun. People, you book accommodation. So the last Beef Week was in last year, 2024. You book accommodation after that event for the
3
next
years
one.
later.
Yes, yeah. That city's. I slept on a friend's garage floor. There was 5 of us in there, grown, grown adults. I won't say
Not
mature.
mature.
We slept in our swags or bedrolls in this shed on this concrete floor for 4 or 5 days.
That's commitment.
Yeah, it was worth.
That's commitment.
It was worth it. Yeah.
So Anna was questioning whether I could hang or not the whole week.
I think it'd be an excellent idea. And we take you on tour before and after as well. Queensland's excellent, but I've had the privilege of living in different parts of all over Australia, and some of them the most beautiful tourist attractions that there is. And there's other elements of that country to see.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll go on tour.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So being able to watch a wombat is quite a treat.
Yeah, I've never been able to do that.
Yeah, you don't want to run over one of them either. They'll blow a tire real quick.
Will they?
Yeah, big suckers.
A wombat.
Wombat.
That's so cool. Well, another one of my favorite parts of the podcast, one of my favorite segments, is that y'all get to become the host, and y'all get to have the opportunity to ask a question if you'd like one, if you'd like to.
Okay. Doc, do you want to go?
And you may not have questions.
Tucker, how do you, the intern program you have is really exceptional. Give me some advice on starting that type of a program at other ranches. There's a huge opportunity to involve young people in that program.
Yeah, the internship program, I was 4 years old when we started it, so I don't know if I have a great idea of how we started, but anybody who asks, I think there's an important mindset, kind of going back to that, an important mindset to start with, that teaching is such an important part of it, because a lot of times these ranches will do an internship just to get the cheap or free help. And so if you look at it from there, you will lose every time, because things get broke. They're a jillaroo or a jackaroo. They're
learning.
They need guidance.
Yeah,
they need guidance, whether they ask for it or not. They need guidance. And so many times in our industry, we expect people to already know, or we don't have the time to teach, but I need the help. And so they get an internship, and then they're like, "Well, that kid didn't know anything." And you're like, "Well, yeah, that's what you started. That's what you looked for." So I think it's important to start with, I'm getting someone to teach, and I feel like it takes about 3 months before we really start to put responsibility on our interns. And so 3 months of teaching, and then it's like, all right, little by little, we'll have you. And so by the time they're at 5 months, there are a lot of things that our interns can do at our place by themselves. And then by 6 months, you've got them fully trained, and then they're like, all right, internship's over, I'm out of here. And we have the opportunity to either hire them or keep them in mind that if we have another position open. That's kind of been the best part of the internship, is that anytime we have an open job looking for someone to develop our bulls, looking for a new foreman, we have a phenomenal pool of people we've already worked with that goes back to the year 2000. So for 25 years, we have this pool of interns that we've worked with, and they're doing some cool things like running the Florida Cattlemen's Association, owning and running some really large ranches in the insurance business, in the feed business. And so almost in any allied industry, we have a connection. And that's really been the long-term benefit of having this internship program. It is a benefit of having another hand, no doubt. But it is definitely a long-term investment than a short-term investment. And so many do it for the short term, get burnt out real quick, and don't want to do it anymore. But that's because they started with the wrong mindset. I think that's just the important part. And having a relationship with the universities around here, the unis.
The uni.
Has been important to us, because we have a really good reference. We can call that professor that we have a deal with, and we're like, "Hey, who's this Lucy Morrissey girl? What is she, some jillaroo that's going to break some stuff, or is she going to be able to help us out?"
Well, I can be a bit like, use the expression bull in a china shop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can Yeah.
Hey, well, if the job is to break stuff, you'd be really good.
Yeah, a bit hard on gear. I'm an emotional woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no.
I get committed to the task.
Very committed, focused.
Yes.
So I think those are the two best things, which we went through too. You know, my dad loves teaching, so it was a great start. You probably can see it that Donald loves the teaching part. So it fits him really good. But sometimes whenever Donald says, you know, I can't teach this whole time, I need you to learn from my foreman. And, you know, sometimes the foreman's not a teacher. And the owner, manager may be a really good teacher, but if you're putting them with somebody else, you got to make sure they're a teacher too, or at least open to teaching.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I think that's a challenge, Tucker, is that you can have the best stockman, best cowboy, best ranch manager, but unless they can pass that information on and share that information and delegate and give instruction and train, it makes it really challenging for those skill sets to flow through into the team. We often, I think, promote people into roles because they are highly skilled at the practical side of the job, but we don't give them any opportunity to learn those soft skills of leadership and diversity and conflict and resolution and influence and motivation and language and educational skills, which really sets them up for failure, because it's hard for a full team of people to learn simply from observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Good question.
Yeah,
That's a
great
good
question,
one.
Doc.
You ought to start a podcast.
This is what he's good at.
It is.
The amount of time you should do car podcasts. Every time you're in a car with somebody, which is a large percentage of his time, just start talking. Although sometimes you spend a lot of time on the phone and neither of you talk at all. Yeah,
We just listen to each other's heartbeat.
All right, Lucy, any question?
Yeah, so I do. So I want to flip it around a little bit. I've just started doing a minute meeting or a Morrissey minute.
Oh, okay. On socials?
Well, yes.
Okay.
But I'm not quite. I mean, I might have 1% of your following. So it's more about those few cool people that are following along with what we do, showing them or showcasing the cool people and the interesting things we do when we travel around the country. So the minute meeting or the Morrissey minute, I think it fits in well because it's hard to get Shane to talk for more than a minute. So it's a Morrissey minute. It's short, it's sweet, very tailored questions. So can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Morrissey Minute on the
Morrissey
Registered
Minute.
Ranching Podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's 3 questions, and this will be good as well for the people at home,
Okay.
because I'll try and share this around a little bit so
Yeah.
you can get more of a following there, so that they understand who you are. So the first question I want you to, I'll tell you all 3, and then you go.
Okay.
So tell me who you are and what you do in terms of agriculture and what we're doing here. 2 is, what is your most recent learning? And 3 is the best thing about working in the cattle industry.
Okay.
Go.
All right. I'm Tucker Brown. I'm a rancher in North Texas. We raise seed stock cattle, Black Angus, Red Angus, and Sim Angus, and raise some good horses, good quarter horses. And then we have 2 bull sales a year. We sell about 800 bulls. And I've kind of gotten into the social media deal probably the past 4 years.
Kinda.
He's
He's a big
kind of
deal.
really.
Tucker Brown, ROB.
Got into the social media deal. Now moved to long form like YouTube and podcast, just because it feels like you can make more of a difference there. You can catch a lot of eyes on socials, but the long form is just so much more personal. So selfishly, I started the podcast because then I get to talk to some really cool people if I can make it happen. What's the next one? My most recent learning?
Yes, sir.
It was about 30 minutes ago when you were talking about the eyes and moving over to how the left eye on cattle communicates with the right side of the brain and how much they use that that's locked in there.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, that was really cool.
This is something that one of people love that.
Yeah.
Especially stockmen who are experienced like yourself. It's everything falls into place. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Why? That's why that works.
Because I've seen it.
Yeah.
But why? I thought that was really cool.
Like a colt in a round pin. Which way will he go the first time? Always counterclockwise.
Huh. He's flexing on us right now.
Yeah, he's flexing
that
hard.
was good.
Power
That was
move.
good. What was the last question?
You know it.
No, I didn't. What
You've
was
forgotten?
it? Yeah.
On
It's
the
a minute's a
spot,
long
on the
time.
spot. What do you think the best thing about working in the cattle industry is, or working with cattle? Any version of that question.
Yeah. Well, for me, I've kind of getting to fallen in. I have fallen into the things that I love most of, like working in agriculture, and being able to share that with people who are interested. It's cool because agriculture allows me to bring in other things I love, like media, which I think all comes back to the people who are in it, I think.
Yeah.
I bet you get that answer a lot. The people,
Well,
the people.
this is only the third
Okay,
time we've done
but
the
I bet you
Morrissey
will.
Minute. But yes,
Yeah.
profoundly the people I've asked to do the Morrissey Minute have incredible teams around them. There's a reason that I've asked these people.
Yeah.
Because they've got the mindset that I'm intrigued by, that I
Mm-hmm.
want to share, that I want to show. And as it may be, it's the people that to them that's the best part. And
Yeah.
they're the ones that have got the best teams around them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's for sure me. I would not do well in, like, central New Mexico or, like, where I'm by myself and it's me and 3,000 cows. Like, I wouldn't do well there.
You're a people person.
I am.
You're an extrovert.
I am an extrovert.
Extreme.
I am an extrovert for
good.
sure.
We like
So
that
I love,
about you.
I love that part.
Okay.
And then I get to, everybody loves to talk about the things they love. Mm-hmm. And social media has allowed me to do that and to find the audience that wants to listen to it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you ask somebody about their cows and all of a sudden their chest starts popping out a little bit. I get to do that every day.
Yeah.
Come
You
on.
want to see a photo of my horse?
Yeah. Let me show you this roan. Let me show you. Hey, if there's one sick in the back, she just eases back there, you know?
The stories start.
Yeah.
We can talk about this all day,
Right?
all night.
Yeah. And I got the best job in the world.
You do. We do.
It's great. That was
That-
Morrissey Minute.
A Morrissey Minute. I've got one other question for you. If we got
Okay.
time. Do you know what a danger noodle is?
That's got to be like a brown snake.
Yeah.
Is it?
It's a snake.
It's a snake, a danger noodle.
danger
Oh my
noodle.
goodness. Isn't there something you call crocodiles or gators or something?
A snappy log.
Oh my gosh. See, at the most simplest form.
Windscreen.
Wind.
A what?
A wind screen.
Being what?
The front of you.
Windshield.
Windshield.
Oh my gosh. A
She
windshield.
always this is
That's
the only child that's ridden with me for a long time, and we stop for fuel. She jumps out and
Cleans
cleans
the
both
windscreen.
sides of the windscreen,
Nice.
Sometimes even the lights.
even the lights.
Even the lights.
Wow, the commitment. There's the focus you were talking about. That's neat.
Well, I need to. There's got to be some way to repay people with value rather than anything monetary. Means more.
Oh yeah.
And if I clean your windscreen every visit for the rest of our lives, well, that might get me somewhere close to repaying everything that you've done for me.
No, I think that's great. And our family really loves food to be that.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we had that brisket last night.
Oof.
Got an Ari Brown Ranch brisket. It was my mom cooked it. I did not cook it.
Well, Kelly
It was
Brown,
good.
she can cook.
I love
went
brisket.
to ask her if she'd like help in the kitchen. I thought she was going to slap me.
You sit down.
Yeah, you sit down there and you enjoy yourself. Okay, yes, ma'am.
But we love it because it, like food, beef brings us together.
Yes.
We get to sit at the table and have those conversations
Yes.
of, look at that roan horse.
Yeah, look at that. You see my dog?
Yeah, yeah.
It is a very special special opportunity to sit around that dinner table of yours. It really is. It's a shame that there's another brother. What's his name again?
Larry.
Larry. Larry's never around.
He's never around.
I haven't
Lanham.
seen that boy for 7 years.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he could tell me some things about horses too, couldn't he?
Yeah, but he's like Shane. He just won't say anything.
Like Hugh.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah. Have you met Hugh?
I haven't.
Oh, you got to come to Nebraska and meet Hugh O'Byrne. He was cowboy before it was cool to be cowboy.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Hugh O'Byrne.
He says nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to chase him on the weekend to get him in a photo. He's
does.
about 6'5" too, so it takes a bit of footing.
It does seem like the smartest man in the room is typically the quietest one. That's why I talk a lot. So that's,
Learn to listen.
yeah.
Silence is powerful, but not
is,
on a
isn't it?
podcast.
No, it doesn't do well on a podcast.
No, that's all
It
good.
doesn't do well. Yeah, what a pleasure having y'all both. Anything else that you think people need to know about cattle handling before you, if they needed to remember one thing, what would it be? Doesn't even have to be about cattle handling.
Can I ask you a question, Doc? What does the shoulder do?
The shoulder keeps the front end of the animal off the ground.
It's my favourite. That's my favourite question. Don't worry about the shoulder. Worry about the eye. Be there for the eye.
Yeah,
That's it.
the eye. Being available to the eye. Got to change my vocabulary for that.
Work off the globe of the eye. Driving motion, maintenance motion, drawing motion. Yeah.
Would that be the one thing you'd want people, if they remembered one thing from this podcast?
That will profoundly change your position when working
Well, it did
with an
mine.
animal. It will.
It did mine.
Think about the eye and where you are and things. And it doesn't just, it takes a minute. Like you said before, the feel, when you'll feel it when it happens and boom.
Yeah.
Yee.
That was it.
Yeah, I did it.
The rest are running off, but that was it.
This one I can walk through the gate on its 2 back feet.
Yeah.
I think, Lucy, what that best defines, learning that defines your drive to be curious and to give. This, when we first started talking about this, we were talking about caretakers at ranches, caretakers at feedlots. Now we use caregiver or shepherd, or that ties everything together. That giving to one another, giving to the soil, giving to the cattle, giving to the community. That's how we all go forward.
Kind of flows into, I like to have a Bible verse that kind of fits the podcast that I'm talking about. And there's one in Proverbs 12:10 that says, "A righteous man cares for the needs of his animal, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel." And so it's our job. Mm-hmm. We have the best job in the world, taking care of his land and animals. Come on.
Privilege, yeah.
That's all I got.
I want to ask a question of your listeners,
Okay.
particularly the ones in Australia.
Yeah.
Let's brainstorm what we need to do to get the Tucker Brown, RAB, to Australia for Beef Week.
Beef Week. I got to come for Beef Week.
With-
if I come before or after,
With
great.
Dr. Tom Noffsinger and Diane in tow,
I would
hopefully,
love
as
to
well.
come.
Yeah.
Like Beef Week is like that's my
brainstorm.
happy place, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, it's a week of beef.
Yeah, a beef of week and people. Wow, a week of beef and people is like my happy place. That's amazing. Where can they? You talked about the Morrissey Minute. Where can they follow you and your trips around the nation and Australia?
Yeah, come on the ride with us. Morrissey and Friends, Livestock Services, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I really like LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool platform combining impactful content and industry. You tailor it all to your interests in that news feed, and I think that's I really like LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. Just Morrissey and Friends Livestock Services. I'm no Tucker Brown, but when I do put something on there, it's about the people we work with and the cattle and the horses, and I try and combine it with a learning as well. And it's just showcasing the really cool life we get to live and the interesting people we get to spend time with. So pretty simple.
Morrissey and Friends.
Morrissey and Friends, yeah.
Dr. Tom, if they were wanting to learn more about your availability as far as teaching or schooling or you coming to the ranch, how do they get a hold of you or find that?
My email address is the best way, and I'll share that with you.
Yeah.
It's simply dvm.drtom@gmail.com.
There it is.
Happy to respond.
Yeah, there it is. Dr. Tom Noffsinger and Lucy Morrissey. How cool to have y'all here together. Missing Shane.
I know Shane will be here in June, so
Oh, he will?
yeah, I'll start prepping him now.
Yep. Yeah. He's going to have to
He loves
talk.
coming to visit you guys.
Good.
Yeah, he does. So do I.
Because it's really cool to have him be a part here. Because he's been here. One of the hardest parts of probably my job is having like new cowboys, new hands come in and make the same mistakes that the one before them made. And like me seeing, I mean, it's cool to see the change of them recognizing, changing, looking at the eye changes the way they handle or something like that. But having a crew on the same page is so important in a drive. And then having new people come in and change that whole movement of cattle is difficult.
Well, last time I was here, you let me ride the infamous
Snapchat.
And you put me in the lead of the mob. I didn't know where I was going, and Snapchat tried to buck me off.
No.
Remember in the gateway where there's that little tank that you remember?
Yeah, I don't remember him bucking though.
Well, he didn't buck. He did a little fart. Switched his tail. And,
That's his form
tried
of
to
bucking,
turn
yeah.
around and run back through the mob. I think he saw you and was like, "I'm coming, Daddy, save me!" And you just stood there and laughed at me. But we got there. It was good. But I just want to go back to what you've said there. If all I can offer the industry is to help people not make the same mistakes I've made and fast track their skill set, founded on my lived experiences and the incredible people who have shared with me, which has taken a long time for me to do and a huge commitment and sacrifice. If I can help people skip some of those mistakes, well, that's okay. That's enough.
Valuable.
Yeah.
Valuable. How cool. Thank y'all so much for joining the Registered Ranching Podcast, and look forward to spending the rest of the day with y'all. I know you don't have long, but looking forward to that. You've been listening to the Registered Ranching Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Go to registeredranching.com. Get you some merch. Oh, I got to get y'all some caps, by the way.
Yes, please.
We'll go get that. Check it out. And don't worry, Willie fans. We'll have Willie on the next podcast, and that's going to be a good one. I'm actually heading down to Houston here pretty soon. We're going to talk to an NFL tight end who's got a farm in Ohio. Really excited about that. We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, folks, y'all stay classy and ranch on them. We love you. God bless.